I sat in the rental car outside the Belmont Club, watching valets in crisp uniforms guide luxury vehicles into perfect rows. My hands rested on the steering wheel, and I could feel the envelope in my purse, a check for $25,000 made out to my granddaughter, Claire, and her fiancé, Preston. It had taken me 3 months to decide on the amount. Not too much to seem like I was buying affection, but enough to help them start their life together. I'd bought this dress specifically for today, navy blue with delicate silver embroidery at the collar. The saleswoman had assured me it was appropriate for a formal wedding. I'd even gotten my hair done that morning, swept up in a style the stylist called elegant vintage. The passenger door opened, and my daughter Marianne slid in, pulling her phone away from her ear just long enough to say, "You're early, Mother. The ceremony doesn't start for another 40 minutes. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything," I said. She was already typing on her phone. "Well, you'll have to wait in the lobby. They're still setting up the ceremony space. I'd driven 3 hours from my small apartment in Greenfield to be here. Marianne lived 20 minutes away and hadn't offered to pick me up. But that was fine. I was used to doing things on my own. It had been 12 years since Harold passed, and I'd learned that independence wasn't a choice, it was survival. Inside, the Belmont Club was everything I expected from a venue that cost $40,000 to rent. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, massive floral arrangements that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Staff members moved efficiently through the space, adjusting chairs, testing microphones, smoothing tablecloths. A young woman with a headset approached me. "May I help you?" "I'm the grandmother of the bride," I said. "Claire Thompson?" "I'm a bit early." She consulted her tablet. "Name?" "Dorothy Walsh." Her finger scrolled some more. "I'm not seeing you on the ceremony seating chart." My chest tightened. There must be a mistake. "I'm Claire's grandmother. Let me check with the wedding planner." She walked away, heels clicking on the marble. I stood there, clutching my purse, watching other guests begin to arrive. Women in designer dresses, men in tailored suits. They moved through the space with the confidence of people who belonged. The young woman returned with an older man in an impeccable suit. "Mrs. Walsh? I'm Gregory, the event manager. It seems there's been a slight oversight with your seating assignment." "An oversight? The ceremony is at full capacity, but we have a lovely viewing area set up in the adjacent parlor with a live video feed. Many guests have chosen to watch from there. I'd like to sit with my family, please." Gregory's smile didn't waver, but something shifted in his eyes. "I understand, but the seating chart was very specifically arranged by the bride's mother. Perhaps you could speak with her?" I tried calling Marianne. No answer. I sent a text. The 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. The response came, "Mother, just do what they're asking. It's not a big deal. I'll explain later." My fingers felt numb as I typed back. "What's going on?" No response. Gregory was waiting, his professional smile firmly in place. "The parlor is just through those doors. We'll make sure you're very comfortable." The parlor was beautiful, I had to admit. Plush armchairs, another chandelier, a large screen showing the empty ceremony space. But there was only one other person there, an elderly man who appeared to be asleep. I took a seat near the screen and pulled out my phone. Still nothing from Marianne. I opened my text thread with Claire, scrolling back through our messages. They'd grown increasingly sparse over the past year. She'd been busy with wedding planning. I understood that, but I'd offered to help dozens of times. Offered to address invitations, to make favors, to do anything. Every offer had been politely declined. The screen flickered to life, showing guests filing into the ceremony space. I recognized Marianne immediately, her emerald green dress standing out among the pastels. She was laughing with someone, her hand on their arm in that intimate way she had of making everyone feel special. I'd raised her alone after her father died in a factory accident when she was 6. I'd worked double shifts at the hospital, picked up extra nursing hours on holidays, sold the house, and moved us into a smaller apartment so she could go to the college she wanted. When she'd married Robert, a successful real estate developer, I'd been happy for her, proud that she'd found security I could never provide. But somewhere along the way, the daughter who used to call me every Sunday had become someone who screened my calls. The ceremony was beautiful, even on a screen. Claire looked radiant in a dress that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. Preston stood at the altar in a custom tuxedo, his family filling the first 3 rows on his side. I counted the rows on Claire's side, Marianne and Robert in the front row, his business partners and their wives in the second row. Third row people I didn't recognize. Where would I have sat? The elderly man next to me woke up with a snort. What'd I miss? The vows are about to start. He squinted at the screen. Which one is this? Johnson wedding or the Thompson wedding? Thompson. Ah. He settled back into his chair. My grandson's the club manager. He gave me a guest pass for the food. These rich folks always order too much. I tried to focus on the ceremony, on Claire's face as she said, I do, but all I could think about was the empty chair in that parlor. Had Marianne told Claire I was here? Did my granddaughter even know I'd come? After the ceremony, I waited for someone to come get me. Gregory appeared instead. The cocktail hour is beginning in the garden terrace. I'll show you to your table for the reception. I'd like to see my daughter first. Of course, she's in the family photo session, but I'm sure she'll come find you shortly. My table was in the far corner of the ballroom, partially hidden by a decorative column. Table 19. I was seated with Robert's great-aunt, who was hard of hearing, and several elderly couples I didn't recognize. The centerpiece was slightly smaller than the others, the flowers less elaborate. I took out my phone and looked at the check in my purse. $25,000. It represented 2 years of careful saving, of skipping vacations, of buying store-brand everything, of keeping my apartment at 62 degrees in winter. The young woman to my right introduced herself. I'm Stella. You're with the bride's family? I'm Claire's grandmother. Oh, how lovely. You must be so proud. I am. Have you been involved in the planning? Marianne's been telling everyone about all the details. The imported roses, the ice sculpture, the custom menu from that chef who was on television. No, I haven't been very involved. Stella touched my hand. Well, it's a mother-daughter thing, isn't it? My daughter didn't want my input either when she got married. They have their own vision. I excused myself and went to find the restroom. On the way, I passed the family photos being displayed on elegant stands. There were dozens of them. Baby Claire, toddler Claire, Claire at her high school graduation, Claire at her college graduation, Claire and Preston on various vacations, ski slopes, tropical beaches, European cities. I wasn't in a single one. I kept walking and found myself in a quiet hallway lined with doors. Staff members hurried past with trays and equipment. One door was slightly ajar, and I could see inside an office, probably Gregory's. There were papers on the desk, including what looked like the evening's schedule. I shouldn't have looked. I knew that. But I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The contract was right there on top. The Belmont Club Event Agreement. I scanned down to the client information. Let's see. Marianne Thompson Walsh. Event type, wedding reception. Event date. Today's date. Rental fee. $42,000. Catering. 38,000. Additional services. $15,000. Total. 95,000. $95,000. I heard footsteps and quickly backed out of the office. A waiter passed without noticing me. My heart was pounding. I made it back to my table just as the doors opened and the wedding party was announced. Claire and Preston entered to applause and took their seats at the head table. Marianne and Robert sat next to them, beaming. The toasts began. Robert's business partner talked about Preston's character and potential. Marianne talked about Claire's beauty and grace and how proud she was to have raised such an accomplished young woman. I did it alone, Marianne said, dabbing at her eyes. After Claire's father and I divorced, it was just the two of us. And look at her now, alone. The word echoed in my head. I'd been there. I'd watched Claire every day after school when Marianne was working. I'd paid for her art classes when Marianne said they couldn't afford it. I'd taught her to bake, to garden, to hem her own clothes. When Marianne had moved to the city for a better job, I'd taken care of Claire every weekend for 3 years. But I'd done it quietly, without asking for credit, because that's what you did for family. Preston's sister gave a toast about true love. The best man told inappropriate stories that made everyone laugh. And then Preston stood up. "I want to thank everyone who made this day possible," he said, "especially my incredible mother-in-law, Marianne, who planned every detail of this perfect celebration." The applause was thunderous. Marianne has shown me what it means to be a strong, independent woman who creates beauty and joy for everyone around her. She's everything I hope Claire and I can be as we build our own family. More applause. Marianne stood and hugged Preston, then Claire. The 3 of them posed for the photographer, arms around each other, smiling. I felt something crack inside my chest. Dinner was served. Filet mignon, roasted vegetables, potatoes that had been sculpted into perfect spheres. The woman next to me couldn't cut her meat, so I helped her. She thanked me and asked if I had grandchildren. "1," I said. "She got married today." "How wonderful. You must be over the moon." I excused myself again. I couldn't sit there anymore. I walked back through the hallways, not sure where I was going, just needing to move. I found myself in the kitchen. Staff members were plating desserts, elaborate chocolate constructions with gold leaf and spun sugar. No one questioned my presence. I probably looked like one of the catering supervisors. The head chef was barking orders, his white coat splattered with various sauces. "Those need to go out in 5 minutes. Where's the champagne for the cake cutting?" A young woman hurried past carrying a tray. She bumped into me, and one of the desserts tilted dangerously. I caught it before it fell. "Oh, God, thank you," she said. "That would have been my job." "It's fine," I said, steadying the plate. She looked at me more closely. "You're a guest, aren't you? You shouldn't be back here." "I used to work in food service," I said. "Hospital cafeteria. I know what it's like when things get hectic." "The worst," she agreed. "Especially these fancy weddings. Everyone wants perfection, and they're willing to pay for it, but they don't want to see how hard we work to make it happen." What did this one cost? The desserts alone? About $3,000. And that's not even the wedding cake. She pointed to a massive 5-tier creation in the corner, covered in fresh flowers and intricate piping. That's another $2,000. $5,000 for cake. I thought about the envelope in my purse, about working Christmas and Thanksgiving for double-time pay, about eating ramen for dinner so I could save another $50. The young woman looked at me with sudden recognition. "Wait, are you the grandmother? Table 19? "Yes." She bit her lip. "I'm sorry about your table assignment." I heard the mother, Marianne. She was very specific about keeping the main family separate from the extended relatives. She said she didn't want her mother interfering with the photos or the important moments. My throat felt tight. Did she say why? Something about you being from a different lifestyle. She wanted everything to look cohesive, I guess, like everyone belonged in the same social circle. I didn't trust myself to speak. The young woman touched my arm. "For what it's worth, I think that's horrible. You seem like a really nice lady." I thanked her and made my way back to the ballroom. The cake cutting was about to begin. Everyone gathered around with their cameras ready. Claire and Preston held the knife together, smiling for the photographers. The cake was cut. The crowd applauded. The first slice was fed to each other. He smeared a little on her nose. She laughed and retaliated. Everyone thought it was adorable. Then Marianne stepped forward. "Before we serve the cake, I want to make a special announcement." The room quieted. As many of you know, this venue, the Belmont Club, is one of the most exclusive in the state. We were lucky to book it. She paused for effect. What you may not know is that I've just received word from the ownership that they were so impressed with our event, they've offered us membership. Gasps from the crowd. Applause. This was apparently a big deal. Robert and I are honored to accept, Marianne continued, and we're thrilled to be joining such a distinguished community. Preston hugged her. Claire hugged her. Robert shook hands with several men in the crowd, who apparently were already members. I stood by the column, watching. A hand touched my shoulder. I turned to see Gregory, the event manager. Mrs. Walsh? Could I speak with you privately for a moment? My first thought was that he was going to ask me to leave, that Marianne had complained about my presence in the kitchen or something. But his expression was different. Concerned, maybe, or confused. I followed him back to his office. He closed the door and gestured to a chair. Mrs. Walsh, I need to verify something. For insurance purposes, we require full disclosure of property ownership from all parties involved in events. Your daughter listed herself as the primary contact and financial responsible party. Yes, she paid for the event. Right. But there's a discrepancy I need to clarify. He pulled out a folder. The Belmont Club is owned by Meridian Properties, LLC. According to our records, the majority shareholder of Meridian Properties is a Dorothy Ann Walsh. Is that you? I stared at him. Mrs. Walsh? Yes, I said quietly. That's me. He sat back in his chair. I see. And does your daughter know this? I thought back to all the conversations about the wedding. Marianne mentioning the Belmont Club with such reverence, talking about how hard it had been to book, how expensive it was, how exclusive. Not once had she asked me about it. No, I said. She doesn't know. Gregory nodded slowly. The reason I'm asking is that we have a standard 50% discount for events hosted by ownership family members. Your daughter paid full price. She did. Would you like me to process a refund for— No, I said. Don't do that. He looked confused. Mrs. Walsh, that's $47,000. I know. I stood up. I need to think about this. Please don't say anything to my daughter yet. I went back to the ballroom. Dancing had started. Claire and Preston swayed in the center of the floor to some modern song I didn't recognize. Other couples joined them. Marianne and Robert looked elegant together, moving with practiced ease. I sat down at table 19 and pulled out my phone. I opened my banking app and looked at the savings account, the one I'd been building for 20 years, the one that held the money from Harold's life insurance, from selling our house, from every extra shift and skipped vacation and worn-out pair of shoes I'd endured. $437,000. I'd been planning to split it between Marianne and Claire when I died, to give them something after I was gone, to prove that even though I'd never been wealthy, I'd been careful, responsible, a good steward of what little I had. But sitting there in that corner, hidden by a column, watching my daughter accept congratulations for joining a club I owned, I realized something. They didn't need my money. They had plenty of their own. What they needed was a lesson. I found the young woman from the kitchen, her name tag, said Sophie, during a quiet moment. Can I ask you something? You said you heard Marianne talk about keeping me separate. What exactly did she say? Sophie hesitated. I probably shouldn't. Please, she sighed. She said that her mother was from a different generation, that you wouldn't understand the kind of event she was trying to create. She said you were sweet but provincial, that you'd show up in the wrong kind of dress and try to talk to the important guests about things they didn't care about. She wanted you here because it would look bad if you weren't, but she didn't want you visible. Provincial. The word hung in the air between us. Thank you for telling me, I said. The reception was winding down. Claire and Preston were preparing to leave for their honeymoon 2 weeks in Bali, apparently. I watched Marianne help Claire change into her going-away outfit, watched them hug, watched my daughter wipe tears from her eyes as she waved goodbye to the bride and groom. I approached her as the other guests began to leave. Mariana. She turned, startled. Mother! I'm so sorry. I meant to come check on you earlier. Was everything okay? Did you enjoy the reception? It was lovely. You did a beautiful job. Thank you. She kissed my cheek absently, already looking over my shoulder at someone else. Robert and I are heading to the after-party at the country club. You probably want to get on the road before it gets too late. Actually, I'd like to talk to you for a moment. Privately. Mother, I really don't have time right now. It's about the venue. Something flickered across her face. Annoyance? Maybe? What about it? Did you know I own it? The color drained from her face. What? The Belmont Club. I own 51% of Meridian Properties, which owns this building, and 3 others. She stared at me. That's not possible. Your father left me a life insurance policy. I invested it wisely. Over the years, I've built a substantial portfolio. I kept my voice level. Gregory informed me that family members get a 50% discount on events. You paid $95,000 for today. You could have paid $47,000. I don't understand. You never asked. You never once mentioned to me that you were booking the Belmont Club. You just assumed I wouldn't know anything about it, because I'm provincial. Who told you that? Does it matter? Marianne's shock was shifting to something else. Anger, maybe, or embarrassment. If you own this place, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you offer to help? Because you didn't want my help. You made that very clear. You seated me in a parlor for the ceremony. You put me at table 19. Behind a column, you told the staff to keep the main family separate from me. That's not. You stood up there and told everyone you raised Claire alone. You erased me from her childhood, just like you erased me from those photo displays. Mother, you're being dramatic. I pulled the envelope from my purse. This is the check I was going to give Claire. $25,000. I spent months deciding on the amount. I wanted it to be meaningful but not excessive. I tore it in half. Then, in half again. What are you doing? I'm done being invisible. I let the pieces fall to the floor. I'm also done subsidizing your membership to my club. Gregory will be in touch about the billing error. You'll need to pay the remainder of what you owe for tonight. You can't be serious. I'm very serious. And one more thing. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, navigating to the trust documents I'd set up last year. I'm updating my will. The money I was going to leave you, almost $500,000, is going to charity. Organizations that help women who've been forgotten by their families. Marianne grabbed my arm. Mother, stop. You're upset. I understand that. But I'm not upset. I'm clear. For the first time in years, I'm seeing everything exactly as it is. If this is about the seating, I can explain. It's not about the seating. It's about the fact that you were ashamed of me. Your own mother. The woman who worked herself to exhaustion to give you opportunities I never had. And instead of being grateful, you tried to hide me away like I was something embarrassing. That's not fair. Neither is telling everyone you raised Claire alone when I was there every single day. I walked toward the exit. Marianne followed, her voice rising. You can't just leave like this. We need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. You've made your choices. Now I'm making mine. In the parking lot, I sat in my rental car for a long time, hands on the steering wheel, breathing slowly. My phone rang. Marianne. I declined the call. It rang again. Declined. A text came through. Mother, please, can we just talk about this like adults? I typed back. You wanted me to stay quiet and out of the way. Consider this me respecting your wishes. I drove back to Greenfield in silence. No radio, just the sound of the engine and my own thoughts. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I need to make some changes to my estate planning. Of course, Dorothy. What kind of changes? I want to set up a scholarship fund at the community college. For nursing students, single mothers, preferably. Women who are working their way through school. That's lovely. How much were you thinking? $400,000. There was a pause. That's most of your estate. Yes. And your daughter? She'll receive a token amount, $1, so she knows she wasn't forgotten. Just excluded. There's a difference. Another pause. Are you sure about this, Dorothy? More sure than I've been about anything in years. The following week, Gregory called. Mrs. Walsh, I wanted to let you know that we've processed the corrected billing for the Thompson-Preston wedding. Mrs. Marianne Walsh has been informed of the additional amount due. Thank you, Gregory. She was not pleased. I imagine not. She's also requesting information about the membership offer. She seems to think there might have been a misunderstanding. I smiled. Tell her that membership is indeed available. At the standard rate, $25,000 per year, plus the initiation fee of $75,000. I'm sure she and Robert can afford it. And if she mentions your relationship, you tell her that our membership committee doesn't give preferential treatment based on personal relationships. We value merit and commitment to the community. If she'd like to apply, she's welcome to go through the standard process. Understood. 2 weeks later, Sophie from the catering staff sent me a message on Facebook. Mrs. Walsh, I heard what you did. I just wanted to say thank you. My manager gave me a raise because she said any staff member who shows respect to ownership deserves recognition. You changed my life without even knowing it. I messaged back. You showed me kindness when no one else did. That deserved recognition too. She replied, For what it's worth, your granddaughter came back to the club last week with her husband. She asked about you. Wanted to know why you'd left early. I think she didn't know what her mother had done. I stared at that message for a long time. Another message came through. She left this note for you. Should I mail it? The note arrived 3 days later. Grandma Dorothy, I don't know how to start this letter. Mom told me what happened at the reception. She said you were angry about the seating and that you overreacted. But then I talked to some of the staff and I heard a different story. I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were at table 19. I didn't know you watched the ceremony from a different room. I thought you were with Mom and Dad. I thought you were part of everything. I asked Mom why she didn't include you, and she said she was trying to protect me, that you wouldn't have fit in with Preston's family, that you would have been uncomfortable. But that wasn't her decision to make. You're my grandmother. You raised me when Mom was working. You taught me how to make pie crust and how to plant tomatoes and how to stand up for myself. And I forgot all of that because I got caught up in the wedding planning and let Mom make all the decisions. I'm not asking you to forgive me right away. I know I hurt you, but I want you to know that I see you. I've always seen you, and I'm sorry I let you become invisible. Love, Claire. I folded the letter and put it in my desk drawer. A month later, Claire called. I let it go to voicemail. Grandma, it's me. I know you probably don't want to talk, but I'm calling anyway. Preston and I are back from our honeymoon, and I want to see you. I want to hear about your life and your business and all the things I should have asked about years ago. Please call me back. I didn't call back. She tried again a week later. Grandma, I'm not giving up. I know I don't deserve your time, but I'm asking for it anyway. I love you. That never changed, even when I didn't show it. The third time she called, I answered. Grandma, I'm here. Thank you for picking up. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure I would either. Can I come see you? Can we talk? I looked around my small apartment, the same furniture I'd had for 20 years. The photos on the wall, most of them, of Claire at various ages. The grandmother who'd been erased from the wedding photos, but who'd kept every memory. Yes, I said. You can come. When? This weekend. Saturday afternoon. I'll be there. Thank you, Grandma. Really. After we hung up, I sat in my armchair and cried. Not sad tears, not happy tears, just tears of release. On Saturday, there was a knock at my door at exactly 2 o'clock. Claire stood there with a box in her hands. Hi, Grandma. Hello, Claire. I brought something. Can I come in? I stepped aside, and she entered my small living room. She set the box on the coffee table and opened it. Inside were the photos from the wedding, all of them. I went through every single picture, she said. I found you in the background of some of them, by the column, in the hallway. I made prints of all of them, and then I made these. She pulled out a photo album. The first page showed me at the ceremony on the screen in the parlor, my face illuminated by the glow. The caption read, "Grandma Dorothy, who's been watching over me my whole life." The next page showed me at table 19, helping the elderly woman cut her meat. Caption, "Still taking care of everyone, even when no one's taking care of her." Another page, "Me in the kitchen with Sophie." Caption, "Teaching kindness to strangers, because that's who she is." There were a dozen more, each one showing a moment I thought had gone unnoticed. "How did you get these?" I asked. "I hired the photographer to go through all the raw footage, every single shot from that day. I told him I was looking for you. He thought I was crazy, but he did it." She wiped her eyes. "I'm putting together a new wedding album, one that tells the whole story, including the parts Mom wanted to hide." I couldn't speak, and I talked to Preston. "We're not accepting membership to the club. We told them that we don't want to be part of any organization that would exclude family members, even if that family member owns the place." "Claire, I know about the will, Grandma," Mom told me, "and I think it's exactly what you should do. Give that money to people who need it. I don't need your money. I need you." I pulled her into a hug, and we both cried. Later, we sat in my small kitchen drinking tea, and she asked me about the business, about how I'd built it, about what it was like to own property worth millions while living in a modest apartment. "I don't need much," I told her. "This is enough for me." The business was never about luxury. It was about security, about knowing that I'd never be dependent on anyone again. "Will you tell me the whole story? From the beginning?" So I did. I told her about Harold's death, about the insurance money, about meeting a financial advisor who'd taken me seriously when no one else did, about making careful investments and learning to trust my own judgment, about building something that would last. We talked until the sun set, and when she left, she hugged me at the door and said, "I'll call you tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. I have a lot of time to make up for." She kept her promise. She called every day. Sometimes we talked for 5 minutes, sometimes for an hour. She visited every weekend. She brought Preston, who apologized for not noticing my absence at his own wedding. I was so focused on Claire, I didn't see what was happening around me, he said. "That won't happen again." 3 months after the wedding, Claire invited me to dinner at their new house. When I arrived, there was a photo on the mantel, the two of us, from when she was 5, covered in flour from baking cookies. "I found it in your apartment last time I visited," she said. "I had it restored and enlarged. It's my favorite picture in the whole house." Marianne didn't call, didn't text. The silence stretched from weeks to months. I didn't reach out either. A year later, Claire gave birth to a daughter. They named her Dorothy. "We want her to grow up knowing her great-grandmother," Claire said, placing the tiny baby in my arms. "We want her to learn everything you can teach her." I looked down at that small face, those brand new eyes, and felt something shift. Not forgiveness for Marianne that would take time, if it ever came at all, but hope for this new generation. Hope that we could break the cycle. "I'd like that," I said. 2 years after the wedding, my lawyer called. "Dorothy, there's been an inquiry about your estate. From your daughter." "What kind of inquiry?" "She's asking if the will is final, or if you're open to making changes." I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Tell her it's final, and tell her that if she'd like to discuss it further, she knows where to find me. She's also asking about the club membership. Apparently, she's still interested in joining. Then she can submit an application like everyone else. No special treatment. Understood. I hung up and looked at the photo on my desk, little Dorothy, now 2 years old, sitting in my lap in this very apartment. Claire had taken it last week during one of their Sunday visits. In the photo, my great-granddaughter was holding a wooden spoon, and we were both covered in flour, making pie crust, passing down the tradition. I was teaching her something Marianne had forgotten and Claire had almost lost. That family isn't about appearances or social circles or expensive venues. It's about showing up, about being present, about making sure the people you love know they matter. And sometimes, when they forget, it's about reminding them what really counts, even if that reminder costs $47,000.